Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the podcast. Far from okay. It's me again, and I just wanted to start off by saying thanks again for all the support. I enjoy doing the shorts if you guys enjoy getting them. Just back again 2 days before election. It is Sunday night right now. Been a little bit of a delay on the weekend, but still trying to get another one done for you guys. So I hope everybody had a good weekend. I hope football went well. I hope you made good bets, got your pockets right, and you're ready to start the week off. I hope everybody's going to be voting on Tuesday. It's a very, very important election right now, possibly going to be for the importance of the country itself. So, I don't know. There's a lot going on out there right now. I've been kind of trying to watch things and see where everything's headed. It looks like the little guy really likes the big guy, and it looks like everybody else is kind of going to stay put where they are. It's kind of crazy to me. I'm watching this whole thing unfold, and I've been paying attention to some of the words, some of the dialogue, and the way that some of these people choose to deliver their messages. And to me, like, it really is insane. You know, I'm sitting here and I'm listening to people call Trump Hitler and say that he's a dictator and a fascist and all these other things, and he's a threat to democracy. He's going to destroy the country, and he's going to destroy the economy. You know, and there's all these different things coming out, and then Trump says things back, and there's just so much animosity between the two sides, and you can tell that there's just pent-up aggression because of all of the drama that's ensued over the last 8 years, and it's really just kind of crazy. And I guess Tuesday it's all going to come to a head. But I mean, as far as things have been looking, it's just kind of crazy to me. I mean, if you break down the psychology of what's kind of happened over this little period of time since Kamala became the incumbent, it's kind of crazy when you think about like the stones people are willing to throw in the house of glass that they sit in. It's just insane to me. I mean, you have arguably a horrible situation over in the Middle East as well as at home here, based on like Columbia University and the protests that have been going on to support the Palestinians and stuff like that. And in return have been coming around to things like pro-Hamas protests, just based on, you know, the level of aggression being ramped up on these things. Now, these are college kids. These are kids that are either entitled to good tuition, or they got some parents paying the way. It's insane. These are Ivy League schools, and these kids are doing this thing now. What's crazy to me, like stepping away from it in the whole picture, is what you have is a country in Israel at war with the rest of the Middle East over there. You know, arguably, you know, the Iranians, etc. But Iran as a country has used proxies to fight Israel for a long time, and they do it dirty. You know, they hide amongst the citizens. They make bases underneath hospitals and schools and parks and all these places where these civilians live, and these people live in fear of those terrorists. But those terrorists invade their daily lives, and the war gets messy. It does. It gets awful. It gets atrocious. But whenever I'm looking at the way that the rhetoric has been used, you're calling Trump Hitler right now, and there's actively terrorists that want to eradicate the Jewish population from the planet. Now, I'm not saying that the Palestinians themselves are a part of that. I'm not saying that Iran is necessarily, even though obviously they are, but I'm not trying to put words in everybody's mouth. But the proxy groups and the terrorist cells within the Houthis and all these different proxies that Iran has used since Joe Biden released the $6 billion for them, they do want the Jewish population gone. They want Israel back. They want that for themselves. They don't have any respect or regard for Israel or the Jewish population. Now, you have a party in office right now that is running for the White House, supporting the people that are supporting the terrorists in the Middle East fighting Israel right now. So essentially, you have people supporting people from this administration across the world that are trying to eradicate the Jewish population, which to me is very symbolic of what Adolf Hitler kind of sanctimoniously ran his entire career on, as far as people know him. So it's funny that you would call him a tyrant and a dictator and then refer to him as Hitler whenever clearly, just obviously to the least common observer, it's insane how similar what you're actually supporting is to what Hitler did. There's a hypocrisy to the whole thing, and it becomes insane. Trump and Liz Cheney have had issues for God knows how long. Liz Cheney herself just comes across as a bitter, evil woman, and her father was not that great of a person. You're talking about a guy that, quote unquote, accidentally shot somebody while they were hunting. So, Dick Cheney himself was a bit of a warmonger. That was kind of his MO, and he ran with Bush, being that type of iron fist. And, she's kind of followed suit in a lot of her father's policy on that. Trump was referring to her being out in the field in battle. That was clearly not the same as Joe Biden referring to all the Kamala Harris haters as... It's not the same as Joe Biden calling supporters of Trump garbage. And so, it's coming to a point with the rhetoric where, the comments about Liz Cheney are being turned around. Well, that's due to the fact that they needed to find a way to escape the garbage comments that Joe Biden made about Trump supporters. Whenever I watch Trump attack in any kind of presence where he's doing a presentation, when he goes on the attack, it's generally towards the politicians that have been trying to attack him for the last, 8 years. The politicians that have gave him hell for the last 8 years. And so whenever I see the other side, these people refer to MAGA Republicans, which is a general population reference, as garbage. They refer to us as Nazis. They refer to the MAGA Republican as Nazis. They refer to the MAGA Republicans as bigots and all this Bible clutchers and all this other stuff. So when they go on the attack, I notice that they take it out on the population and the support, because it's almost like they can't comprehend in their brain exactly why people would support somebody like him, because they don't seem to understand how things are supposed to actually work. So what they do is, because they're an emotional bunch, they go on the defense and the offense simultaneously, and then they start to call the supporters names. What Trump does is call his enemies in politics names. I think it's a whole different ballgame. Now, there's been times that they've tried to say that he said things, but I think we all know that was kind of bullshit to begin with. You really got to ask yourself before you go in on Tuesday, do you hate Trump because of what they told you to believe, or did you actually see him or hear him say it? You really need to understand what you're going for here. I understand that he doesn't always say the right thing, and I always say that, like, I don't need my boss to be my best friend. If we're going to turn this company into something, I want the guy that's right for the job. The Liz Cheney thing was blown out of proportion because Joe Biden absolutely called his supporters garbage. Now, right now, if you're looking at the polling, that's roughly 50% of the country that he just called out. And that's highly inappropriate. So, I don't know. It's weird to me, man. They say they support women's rights based on the abortion laws going back to the states and being turned over, Roe versus Wade. But at the same end, they have no problem with men competing in women's sports. So as a transgender athlete dominates women's sports, where does the women's rights really go? Who actually supports them? So I guess what I'm saying is, who actually supports women's rights whenever the people that say they support them and are so quote unquote enraged by the virtue signaling of the abortion rights are actively letting women get beat down in sports by transgender athletes? They have no problem with transgenders taking the place of women in real world society, but they say they want women to have equal rights, the same as everybody else. The hypocrisy and the mindset that they use applies to a moving target because they need it to apply to whatever conversation they're in at that time. It's really hard to understand the dialogue here. You know, if you look at Trump through the 80s and Trump through the 90s, there's nothing racist about who he was or what he did for the people around him. Now, there was development issues, but that's real estate, and that's a little bit different. I think every area goes through these things. But as far as what he did and who he was friends with, who he palled around with, and who he lent his support to through those times, I mean, you got a long list. And so when you look at it, I mean, he really isn't the person that they try to portray him as. What he does do, however, because of his anti-establishment. See, people don't understand. They think Trump could be a politician in their minds, but he's not. He's never been a politician. He's a businessman. Trump knows that it's a business. It always has been. That's how you become a strong economy. We are the buffer between the bad guys and the good guys around the world. That's our position. Whether we play the part well or not, that's really debatable. But at the same end, we are the buffer. Once we show weakness and we concede ourselves to the evil across the plane, then it's going to get bad. We are the ones. The only reason NATO would exist is because of us. So what I'm saying basically is that we need to show strength, and we need somebody who's strong in office, not somebody who's babbling and who's an idiot. Not somebody who speaks in hyperbole and word salad and supports the very things that are tearing this country apart while trying to gain support from the people who are victimized by it. You let people into the border. You fired people for not being vaccinated from federal jobs. These people coming across the border have no vaccinations. They got no name. They got no anything, no identification. You don't know their physical history, their health records, anything about them, what they could be bringing over. Yet and still, when COVID hit, you know, these people are the same ones who wanted you to take the shot or get out of your job, sit at home, and be broke. You know, this is what you're dealing with. You need to think about these things whenever the election time comes, because they supported all the things that held you down. The crazy part is they say they won't go back. That's their slogan, but what they want is to be more involved in your life. And when you get more federal involvement in your daily life, you're going forward into a dark, dark place. You know, as you begin to step into socialism, the government clamps down pretty quick. You know, things like your finances, the amount of money you're allowed to make, the amount of money you're allowed to spend. You know, she goes after price gouging. There's many, many records that show that there's just no way that works in society. You can laugh about it or say whatever you want, but whenever you go after the corporate enterprises and the way that they operate, you're going to create a lot more problems. You know, it's funny, like it's like Joe Biden would sit there and tell you that the agriculturist was responsible for the price of food, and that's why you're paying more for your steaks. But in reality, what he doesn't tell you, and what's hilarious about that whole idea, is that most of your big farms out here are subsidized by the government. They get money from the government to do what they do. They buy the equipment, they farm it all year, and then they produce for the government. That's kind of the way that it works. I mean, it's what kept agriculture alive at one point. So, you know, it's very similar to the way that these politicians tell you they're going to go after the billionaires, but that's who funds their politics. When they talk about record in Montana right now, it's the most spending on a Senate seat race in history. That's billionaires' money. So when they tell you they're going to tax the wealthy, they're lying to you. And they never were, and they never will. But if capitalism works right, because the right people have to be involved, then you can cut taxes for the rich, and it does trickle down. When the wrong people are involved, it's always going to go bad, no matter what the process is. Elon Musk is saying he can get rid of $2 trillion in spending. I mean, these people are mad because we're trying to take back our freedoms from the federal government as they try to lock down on us harder. Don't forget Joe Biden hired 87,000 IRS agents. That wasn't for any other reason to go through your Venmo, go through your PayPal account, go through every couple dollars that you tried to make outside of the government's hands because of how unright they tax you in the first place. So they actually are punishing you for trying to get around them because they're too unruly in the first place. And if you understand what's going on right now, or if you want to believe that your side's the winner, that's cool. But if you understand what's going on right now, then you know the Republican Party wants less government involvement for you. They're not going to let your rights be taken away because 51% of the other side voted against your 49%. They're not going to let that happen to you. You still have a say. That's what a republic is. A republic states that it's a majority vote to the extent that it doesn't infringe on other people's rights. A democratic state is mob rule. So as we approach this next election cycle, I really, really hope you take it into consideration that the guy that says mean things and doesn't always say it properly or come across the best way or says bigly and other things like that, he knows what he's doing. Whether you know it or not, or you're willing to admit it or not, he knows what he's doing. Because what it takes is the right people, and the first thing he's going to do is get rid of the wrong ones. If he was going to destroy the country, he'd have done it 4 years ago. And if she was going to fix it, she'd have done it by now. So understand it's up to you. And, I mean, Pennsylvania's probably going to drag it through the dirt just like they always do. But you got to feel good about this one. The Republicans are turning out big in early voting. The Democrats are starting to say things like we're nauseously optimistic was a term I heard today. So keep your fingers crossed and let's hope that the right guys get in because we need it. We need to turn this ship around before it sinks on us. And yeah, man, this has been me just rambling for a while because that's where it's at now. This is the Far From Okay podcast, man. And I just hope you guys stay blessed out there. You know, stick with your families, hold them tight, kiss them goodnight. This is going to be a lot coming up. You know, who knows how either side's going to react when either side wins or how this is going to go, you know, long term. So, you know, I pray every day that, you know, this thing gets resolved and we get back on the right ship. Just a little bit of common sense and morality. That's I think that's fair, right? I mean, for us to kind of just get our heads straight a little bit instead of being all over the place. People do need help. People need a lot of help. But if you spend it all in the wrong place and the people that really need it won't be able to get it. You know, don't support people that won't. Support people that can't. That's the best way to be, I think, in this whole process. But anyways, this has been me, and this has been the Far From Okay podcast. Like I said, I really appreciate you guys. I hope you guys get out and vote, and stay safe out there. Bye.